We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's September 25th here in Seoul. I'm Shin, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Choi Ji-hee.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right, now both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Over the weekend, Asia's largest sporting event kicked off. The 19th Asian Games opened in Hangzhou, China, in front of a packed crowd at an 80,000 capacity stadium. The Games had been delayed by a year due to COVID-19. As people had long awaited the event, excitement filled the air. More than 12,000 athletes from 45 countries across Asia participated, and Team Korea sent a team of 1,140. Eyes are specifically on how well it will perform in a new sports category, esports. And we're soon to see Japan release its second batch of treated wastewater from its Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. But according to the sample results released on Saturday from Tokyo's electric power company, some radioactive isotopes were detected in the storage tanks containing the water. A total of 4 isotopes of the 29 detectable were found. Fortunately, though, they weren't found in amounts considered dangerous. And lastly, covering news here in South Korea. Recently, a job employment site surveyed 1,743 job seekers in their 20s who graduated college here in the capital, Seoul. 7 out of 10 said they had no intention of finding a job in rural areas, mainly because they thought it would be a completely different environment that would take a long time to adjust and because there seems to be a lack of leisure activities or infrastructure available nearby. But what was interesting was the next question asked. The survey asked how much these job seekers would need to be paid to actually go to these rural areas. 30% said they would expect to be paid at least $59,000 a year to move to rural areas. And this survey depicts the reality among the younger generation. Many want to live and find a job only here in the capital, Seoul. And why do you guys think this is the case, and how much would you require to move outside the capital?
Well, let me just give you my experience, because I have actually worked in a rural area before. And when I say rural, I mean as desert-like as you could possibly get, in the middle of nowhere. The closest town was like 200-300 kilometers away. Wow. This is in Australia, of course. And they're right, they understand that, you know, there aren't a lot of leisure activities. Usually the camps that are set up for the workers, they have some things available for people who work there, but yes, it gets very boring. But the incentive, that's where it basically changed my mind, because at the time, and I'm not afraid to tell people, I was getting paid around minimum 3,000 Australian dollars a week.
Wow.
So that was around over 100,000 a year. So yeah, it was good money.
Really nice.
And it's good for younger people, I think, who are just wanting to save a bit of money. For families, it's a lot more difficult. So yeah, I can understand why people just want to stay in the convenience of Seoul and, you know, be with their family. It's much more enticing.
But at the same time, I think we mentioned this during our rehearsal. If you're single and without a family, I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to really earn that money and save up. But then I do understand for Walter, like, you have a family here, so it'd take a lot more money for you to actually give everything up, like cut off your connections and then go to rural areas, right?
Exactly. I think it would be very difficult. Like, even if I were having the opportunity to move my family there, I think it would be very difficult for them to customize to that. So yes.
What about you, Ji? How much would you require to actually go to rural areas?
Well, it really depends not only on the salary offered, but also the distance from Central Seoul, because I would like it to be 2 or 3 hours driving distance when there's no traffic, so that I can easily go back to Seoul during weekends and as well as holidays. And the offered salary, I'd say if they offer like $85,000
$85,000 at least.
Because I would have to be giving up on so much, and I don't like the feeling of being isolated, you know? So
And not to mention, there's just so many beautiful cities outside of Seoul as well. Let's not get that wrong. There's so many great tourist attractions out there, a lot of beautiful landscapes that you might not even enjoy here in the capital. But I guess the biggest kick away for us is that there's not enough entertainment facilities, not enough like department stores, movie theaters, or even simple things to just go out and dine with your friends.
yeah, also the network that you have formed
Exactly.
in your life.
All your friends could be concentrated in the capital. So these are some reasons our generation is refraining from to actually go to these rural parts of the country. And that was our news feed for this Monday. Let's now head into our main discussion of the day. A few weeks back, students from two of the country's top universities brought their school spirit to the next level at their annual sports event. At the event, though, some students from the school's branch campuses said they've experienced discrimination. Take a look at the screen to find out more. Tension between main campus and branch campus students has always been a thing in Korea. That mainly has to do with Korea's hyper-competitive education environment and its emphasis on university titles. Though a school may use the same name, if it has separate campuses, students from the main campus consider those from branch to be from a separate institution. Tension between a university's main campus students and their branch campus students. It's always been there, but never explicitly talked about until this year's sports competition between two of the top universities in Korea. So here in the studio, Chi-hee, could you tell us how this years-long tension blew up recently?
Right, so like you mentioned, the college festival season was in full swing, and the long-standing discrimination and animosity between the branch and main school campuses have resurfaced. Now, branch schools were initially established as part of the government's metropolitan area population distribution policy to really increase that higher education opportunities in rural areas. And they're affiliated with main schools such as Yonsei University, Korea University, Hanyang University, and Konkuk University as well. And during the recent annual competition between Yonsei and Korea University, also known as Yeonggojeon, the president of the Seoul campus student body made a controversial speech, which he referred to the students from the branch schools as mere visitors, not students of the affiliated school. So the participation of satellite campus students in this tournament also caused dissatisfaction among the students from the main campuses as well. And they even went on to express their criticism online using hateful language. And this is why this whole long tension between the branch and main campus students have reemerged.
And it's really interesting to see that this is an extension of our news feed. These main campuses are all located in Seoul, and their branch campuses are in the rural areas, which I think brought up the years-long tradition and culture of thinking that in Seoul universities are really prestigious compared to those in rural areas, which I understand added on to this type of conflict and the felt discrimination that these branch campus students were talking about. Walter, would you like to add on?
Yeah, well, talking about those festivals, they're one of the biggest events for any university student who attend these prestigious schools or even a part of the branch schools as well, because there's a rivalry. As you can see, we are both wearing the university colors. I'm giving off very Zac Efron vibes today from High School Musical.
Zac Efron's dad vibes.
Zac Efron's dad's vibes. So anyway, but in the past, like anyone could really attend these festivals, but now it's gotten to the point where now you have to purchase like an admission ticket to enter. And so there's already that divide there. And now the students against the equality for being in a prestigious school as opposed to being in a branch school argue that since their scores are different and they're required to have higher scores to get into the main campus, they shouldn't be compared or be even on the same level or be a level above the branch universities, of course. Now, they're arguing that they should be not treated the same. They should be treated with a bit more, I guess, like with kid gloves kind of thing. But some say that if they just studied harder, then the branch students would be able to go to the main campus. But I think that's, as a person who's been long out of university, that's quite an immature argument in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
But then again, I think while we were all high school seniors trying to prepare for universities, we have to admit, we thought labels were very important. That's how we were taught from a young age. But now that we graduated, I think we don't think that way too much, but I do understand where the central part of the issue comes from. And another key word attached to millennials and Gen Z is equality and fairness. These are concepts our generation in particular seem to be sensitively opting for. So with this latest issue, main campus students, as you mentioned, Walter, saying we have different cut lines, we have different admission processes compared to branch campus students. Whereas branch campus students are saying, but we're still affiliated under the same school. So this is a tricky and thorny issue. Given that, how did our generation mostly react?
Right. Well, our generation, the key word describing them would be equality and fairness, right? But the incident really was perceived as a form of bullying and even an attitude of arrogance and authoritarianism as well of the millennials and Gen Z. And some people, they were saying it's detrimental to society to really create divisions among individuals based on which universities they've attended, whether it's the main campus or a branch campus. And after all, these university festivals, the whole purpose of them is to really form a sense of togetherness and promote unity.
School spirit.
Exactly. I mean, I do understand that the differences in efforts made to enter prestigious schools and the top-ranking schools should be acknowledged, but with these festivals, these divisions shouldn't really exist.
Right.
And you should really think about the core purpose of them.
It's actually to just come together and enjoy your unionship as students, whether that be in a main campus or a branch campus. What about you, Walter?
Yeah, so I agree with Chihi there, of course. And as we mentioned, this isn't actually a sort of new problem, but it has sort of ignited again recently with what the Seoul campus body has said. And to be honest with you, just in my opinion, I just think it's really silly. But yes, when we were young students, we wanted that name. But according to psychologists, like when comparing the older generation like myself to the younger generation like yourselves, the MZ standards have become stricter. And I think this is why a lot of the main campuses are angry at the branch campuses when they say, hey, we deserve to be looked at in a much more higher status than the branch campuses. I think it's a little bit snobbish in my opinion, but a lot of people are saying, we studied harder, we got the better grades, we need the title. But I argue that many people also still study extremely hard even if they attended the branch campuses. So who are you to say that I studied harder than that person, in my opinion? We applaud your high score. We acknowledge that you are at the main campus, but you don't need to be the person to be looking down on other people.
You're saying that discrimination never has an excuse.
It never has an excuse at all.
I see. But as I mentioned before, this type of discrimination or tension between main campus and branch campus students in Korea isn't really new. It's always been there. So why don't we look at the background behind this?
Yeah, well, first of all, Korea's intense competition, as we know, for university admissions and the country's endemic meritocracy, as well as the social culture, are major factors that really highly prioritize and encourage extreme competition. Now, what also matters, as you briefly mentioned this, Yeon, the literal locations of these campuses. Well, it's a really small country, South Korea, and most prestigious schools are concentrated in Seoul, and branch schools, they are in rural areas, which is really the core purpose of why they were there in the beginning, to raise the higher education opportunities in these areas. But many want to be in Seoul to really climb up that social ladder.
Exactly.
Yes, and as the economic inequality worsens, only a select few can afford access to these quality education, and the isolationist culture as well as meritocracy are further reinforced because of this social system. And so students who have become accustomed to this divided sort of system may develop a sense of superiority over those who have not reached their level of competition. And this may be why the main campus students were discontent with the fact that the branch school students were with them enjoying the festival.
I think this issue isn't like able to pinpoint or blame a specific person or a student from thinking this way. I think it's a societal problem that's been here for so long because, as you mentioned, Chihi, your starting point has to be in Seoul in order for you to seemingly get a job in Seoul, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. So, traditionally, and I guess still thought to this day, not only in South Korea, but I guess all over the world, is that if you are able to get into a prestige school, then that's the first step to success in life. Therefore, you'll be able to move on to a good job and therefore buy a house, have a family, etc. That's the minimum requirement for some people in this world. But things are changing, I believe. So, people want to set themselves apart from the branch campus. Hey, I've got the prestigious school. When we go for the interview with, let's say, another student who was on the branch campus, I want to stand out. I want to be the person who gets this job because I deserve it. That's what originally we always thought. We still probably think today, but I think that needs to change.
It needs to change, and
Yes.
some universities have already taken initiative. We're seeing a lot of Korean prestigious schools also located outside of Seoul, and hopefully more jobs, like companies as well. They're trying to develop their branches outside of the capital, just so that we're seeing equal development across the country rather than just confined here at the capital. But then again, now I would like to expand our topic of the day, not only to here in Korea, but outside. So is this type of tension only confined to Korea, or are there similar conflicts abroad? We asked our viewers, and here's what 3 of them had to say. Take a look at the screen to find out. Tiras Bell said, yes, we call them satellite campuses or branch campuses. My college, Ohio State University, has 3, but there's no conflict since all the campuses are in the same state, Ohio. See, location does play a big part. And Mola Grawal said, in India, we have many campuses across the country, although 4 of them are the oldest and best known for, so the quality varies quite a bit depending on the specific institution. Still, most students yearn just to be a part of IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, due to the brand value attached and the competition that comes with it. Benny D97 said, from my university that I finished in the second branch. Manila is the first branch historically, and the subjects are different between the 2 branches. So I do see that there are similar concepts abroad, but to find out more and to specifically find out if this is the case abroad here in the United States, let's include a fellow Gen Z from the States in our talks right after this. To find out whether conflicts between main campus and branch campus students are apparent in other parts of the world, we're going to include a student who's actually attending a U.S. university with both type of campuses. It's Cho Hyun-woo. He's currently the student body president at George Mason University, Korea, majoring in global affairs. Welcome, Hyun-woo.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Hyun-woo, I'd like to ask you the first question. You're a student at George Mason University's Asian campus here in Korea. Does that make you a branch campus student? Tell us a little bit more about your school and how you've decided to enroll at GMU's Korea campus.
Sure thing. So George Mason University Korea is located in Songdo, Incheon, within the Incheon Global Campus, together with other universities from the US and Europe. So the reason I chose to apply to Mason Korea is because our students receive the same degree and education as those at our main campus in Fairfax, Virginia. And as a global affairs major myself, I'd always wanted to meet new people from all across the world using and studying in English. And our growing student body coming from nearly 30 countries allow for exactly that to happen, all the while staying in Korea. So our admissions process and standards too are completely identical and shared with the US campus. And all of our students are in fact required to study for at least 2 semesters or longer in the US campus. And likewise, students admitted to our US campus have the choice to study abroad here in Korea. And I think that creates an interesting dynamic for our university.
Right, so it's a little different from how branch and main campuses work in Korea, because in Korea, on your degree, it does specify where the campus was located. But for you, I guess the admission process is the same as well as the graduation process, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I see.
I see. So Hyunwoo, you heard our discussion so far. Were there any points you agreed with? Do you think there's some discrimination between main campus and branch campus students in the States as well? And if so, did you experience any of this yourself?
So I think most of the conflicts, like you said, between campuses come from Korea's strict college entrance system and social standards on which university you were admitted into. So many institutions of higher education in the States have many campuses through state university systems, for example, but these are in most cases regarded as separate and distinct universities. I think Mason, which is the university that I go to, is unique in that our campuses are considered no different from their home campuses, which is why personally I haven't experienced discrimination of any kind for what campus I'm enrolled at. And studying in a US university especially was also a breath of fresh air away from the highly competitive process for college admission in Korea, as our university, for one, accepts nearly 90% of its undergraduate applicants. So such a number might not make much sense for the highly selective universities here in Korea, but I think it goes to show how much our university believes in inclusivity, which has been backed up by the numbers and rankings.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and the fact that there is no difference between the US campus and the Korea campus has really shown where we are moving towards the future, and hopefully this is something that we can change here in Korea as well. But what do you think about this type of conflict, and do you agree that requiring branch campus students to clearly identify which campuses they are from is necessary or needed, or do you think that there's a form of discrimination that needs to be nipped in the bud?
So I do need to note that our extended campus system has worked so well for us because of the simple geographical distance between Korea and the US. And as Korea has become definitely an increasingly popular destination to study and travel for many, the situation here is more complex since these campuses are all located in Korea, with most students preferring to study in Seoul, right, as informally referred to as in Seoul. So as much as would be nice to simplify and unify all of these campuses into one and treat them identically, I do understand that this could create more problems than it would solve, especially in Korea, where admission standards are different and all aspects of society are centralized around Seoul. So I do believe branch campus students do need to identify which campus they're from. It's just that this form of discrimination happening in festivals isn't allowed and shouldn't be allowed. But I also think Korea now is in a sort of transitory period where people are just getting used to the idea of different universities or campuses under the same name.
Right. Thank you so much, Hyunwoo. It was a pleasure hearing from you. You mentioned a lot of great points, and hopefully Korea could blueprint off of how the United States is doing with its extended campuses around the globe.
Yeah, I do too.
All
Thank you
right,
for having
thank
me.
you. Now, apart from making more branch campuses outside of Korea, what are some solutions you guys would like to see in terms of nipping discrimination in any form amongst campus students here in Korea?
Well, it's a really complicated issue because, like we said, a lot of different factors are involved, such as the social structure and the very competitive admissions as well. But the thing is, it's our attitude that should change first. We shouldn't be looking down on students who are from branch campuses, although at the same time, we do need to acknowledge those who put in more effort to enter prestigious schools. But it's really it starts from our attitude.
In individual awareness. Very shortly, would you like to add a sentence?
Yeah, just a sentence. Yeah, just obviously the people who look down, that's bullying, don't do it, because eventually it will show in the long run that, you know, just because you're a prestigious school, it won't matter.
It's not more about the label, it's about the personality traits that you have that
Good
will get you in the long run. All right, until then, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Chiji Lee and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.